Good evening and welcome to the Raymond Comprehensive Plan Committee meeting for December 7th. We do have a quorum tonight, and first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of the November 2nd meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The only correction that I could see was that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris Hansen was not present?
Correct.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Correct.
Thank you. All right, so with that correction, all those in favor of approving the meeting? Unanimous? The second item on the agenda is old business, and that would be first to look at revisiting the part 2 of the bus tour. And I guess I would ask Sue where we would be with that.
I talked to Joe Crawford, who talked to his contact in Wyndham, and they could do December 16th, which is a week from Friday. I don't know if that's too close to Christmas or will fit into anyone's schedule, but that is something they could do.
Committee have any thoughts on that?
This would be the Raymond Cape portion of the
Yeah, I believe.
the tour series.
The commercial section in Raymond Cape, I think is what was left.
Sue, do you have a mic?
Yes, I do. And it is on.
All right, thank you.
Any other thoughts on the 16th? Could I just get a kind of a straw poll here? How many people would be interested in going on that tour, and if the 16th would work for them?
Do we have an idea when it might get wrapped up by? At least by 1 or something?
They don't seem to have any time constraints, so we would pretty much probably choose whether it was morning or afternoon.
Okay. I'd be more of a morning. As long as I could wrap it up a little bit before 1, I'd be very interested in doing the tour.
Is that generally a morning tour work for
That'd be my
majority
vote.
of us? Okay. Then why don't we set that as the date for December 16th? I believe was it 9 o'clock?
I think it was 9 that we did before, and that seemed to work for folks without making it
Friday.
9.
9 a.m.?
Good.
Yep.
And we would meet where?
Tasseltop still?
Tasseltop?
Good place to park. And we'd be in the commercial area.
Sure, we could do that.
Or is it somewhere else?
We could meet there, we could park here, whatever you like.
I'm on a call, I'm on a Zoom meeting.
So, sure, Tasseltop.
Tasseltop. Very good.
So
Thank
I'll
you.
confirm that with them and then send an email.
I guess that'll work.
Excellent. Thank you.
That day.
And the next item under old business would be update on St. Joseph's intern. I place this on the agenda only because if we have no action currently, and I don't know that we have plans just yet to utilize the intern, I just ask for basically a consent from the committee that we remove this from the agenda until there's some action. And unanimous consent?
Yes.
All right. So we will not have to carry that over until there's some action, and I would assume that you will know that, Sue, and you can inform us.
Yes.
Great.
Either I will or don't.
Okay, very good. Next on the agenda for old business would be Kayla, talk a little bit about the results of the Election Day survey. I know that we all got emails from that. I was kind of bowled over by the response, but if you could please just enlighten us as to overall what you found.
Sure, I'd love to do a recap. I thought, first of all, I was really impressed when I was there for my couple of hours, how much interaction there was. We were holding up lines. I mean, people were, really interested in it. And I was really impressed by that because normally when, people just want to get in, they want to get out, but they wanted to see what we were doing. So I thought that was really cool. We got a total of 2,943 votes. And we could assume that everybody put in 3 votes like we asked. And that would be a total of 981 people participating. To me, it felt like there was 981 in that 2 hours that I was there personally. It just felt like a lot of people, and Frank, you were really, really good at grabbing them and getting their attention. I was, like I said, just tickled with how many people were there. So the big winner, and I guess probably we're not surprised by this, is natural resources with 755 votes. Next would be infrastructure for 590 votes. And then we have economy at 506, land use at 376, municipal services with 365, and housing for 351. Well, I think that is also fairly in line with our sort of top 3, and at least it's all of our kind of top priorities and concerns. Yeah.
Excellent. Other comments from committee members that were involved in the Election Day survey?
Echo all that. It was a great time. Saw a lot of old faces, new faces, and yeah, a high participation rate. It was effective. It was great. Well
Kayla,
worth it.
how many, do you know how many emails we captured?
Yes, 76 emails. And I think the next thing is to figure out what we do with those.
Right.
You know, and I guess I can ask maybe.
Well,
You
and
could ask Melissa to help you, or to do some sort of an update, or maybe provide information periodically. She does the communications for the town.
or what we did with the recycling committee is Kevin set up on the website a way for people to give us their emails to
Yep.
the recycling committee. And then when they collected them at an election, they would input them or we could pass them.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about once we have them, what we do with them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm-
what
I think
I'm
once we
talking
have them, we
about
should send
collecting.
something out.
Yeah, I'm talking about the collection. I think that's what you were.
Yeah, we should keep collecting them, but if we don't do anything with them, I think that would be,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So I can ask Kevin, and would the committee want me to put something on the website so people could start signing up for future communications from the comprehensive plan committee?
In fact, your
Yes.
first update could be, do you know we did this and here are the results?
Yes,
Yep.
yep, yep.
Okay, so I can do that, and then if you could get that list to us, we could get them entered in.
Okay,
Mhm.
sounds good.
So that
And if you
would,
have any thoughts, contact us, that kind of thing. Yeah.
that would go to folks who sent their emails in, in addition to being posted on the website, or
Right, like we could continue to gather more email addresses, but they would all be compiled. So if we wanted to send out an email, they would all go out to everybody who was on the email list.
My thoughts were basically not being one that's overly extroverted and doesn't usually get out and talk to a lot of people. It was just a thrill for me to participate in this and actually get to talk to the citizens and see their interests. And one of the things I realized is that Frank McDermott knows everybody in this town. So I learned from the master there, and he quickly put me at ease as far as approaching people. And it was just a real learning experience for myself, and I found it very gratifying. And I think we're well on our way to establishing some brand, if you will, of who we are and what we're up to, and some real positive vibes coming from the citizens. I think this is a great start.
I think it sets the stage. So when we're sending them this huge survey, I think we're more likely to get participation because we've sort of already primed them. We've already got them thinking. So when we're asking them to, what I assume is fill out a very comprehensive survey, they're more likely, I think, to participate. I think we'll get 981 at least.
Great job for the subcommittee as far as planning this and putting it all together, and with the help of the municipal staff in carrying it off. It really was a success. All right, moving on. Next on the agenda would be formalizing communications. This is continued from our last meeting First off, I guess I would ask Sue, I'm not sure exactly where we stand on the Raymond, Maine emails that we discussed at last meeting.
They all exist. I sent them all out to you and then had to send out notes, don't use those, because Kevin reset all of the passwords. I need to send you each an individual email with just your passwords so that you all don't have each other's. And that I didn't recognize. I was just trying to get them out. So that hopefully I can get done tomorrow, depending on what happens, how much time it takes to update the RFP tomorrow.
Great.
But I'm hoping that before Christmas, I get them out to you if nothing else.
Very good. And we did have conversation at the last meeting in November regarding the use of those, and I believe what the committee left was the option to either continue to use our own emails or to use the town emails. I, for one, plan on using the town email, and I think that, based on the discussion we had as far as freedom of information and the issues that can be involved if there is a request, it would seem to be the most expedient way to handle that. So I'd encourage everyone on the committee to use those. But once again, we're going to leave that option to the committee as far as how you want to use the email. Okay, great.
The other piece of that, if I may,
Yes.
is that Kevin did set up an email address, comp.plan@raymondmaine.org, that's currently going to me for lack of anywhere else to put it. And there was talk at the last meeting about setting up one for our tomorrow at raymondmaine.org, possibly for the committee. And in thinking about it, I think the comp.plan could be one that was posted on the website if people had general questions about it, and then I could forward them on to committee chairs. But the R Tomorrow might be a good one to put on things that the committee is actually sending out and looking for information back on. Because we potentially could change who that was going to. If a subcommittee was sending something out, maybe it goes to those members instead of the chairs or something. So that was just a thought as I was looking at the different email options.
What does the committee, what's your preference there?
Does the email have, the ability to kind of auto forward to another email address so that, or are we having to go into a certain browser to access that email separately?
Well, in this case, the general question would come to me and I would just forward it on to Peter and Kay at this point.
I'm just wanting to make sure that if I'm not missing, are
You
we
wouldn't have to
gonna?
go somewhere else to sign into it. It would come to your email address.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
I think I see now what you're asking.
Okay.
I think we should definitely send out emails and the survey blast from our tomorrow. If that's going to be the the brand we go with. I like keeping them separate, but I don't want to overcomplicate things.
But I didn't want to have you have general questions. What is the comp plan? In with something that you're
Yes.
asking for specific kind of feedback for. So I thought if we, and I wouldn't actually put that email address on the website. It would be click here for general questions or something to that effect. Because right now we really don't give them much of a way to contact us yet. It's fairly early in the process, and I thought that would at least give someone that was interested a way to contact someone and not just go into a black hole.
If someone did reply to our tomorrow, would someone get the reply, or what would happen to it?
Oh, well, that could go directly to an individual. It could go directly to the whole committee. It could go directly to the chairs, whatever makes sense. And I would almost think to the chairs. But
Yep.
unless you had a specific thing that a task force was doing,
Sure.
then we could ask Kevin to change that.
I think as long as they're all funneling to our town emails per se,
Yeah.
then that doesn't seem too complicated to me where it's coming from or
Yeah.
what the email address is. I just want to make sure that we're keeping things consistent enough so that citizens aren't super confused,
Yeah.
right? So I think like we'd have to make, if we're going to use two email addresses, I think we need to somehow make it clear that comprehensive plan and our tomorrow, if we're really settling on that, means the same thing. Because I see that being a point of confusion.
Yeah, and
my
that's why I
only-
wouldn't post that email. It would just be a,
It would just be,
Click here.
okay, all right.
Makes sense.
Okay, so,
branding's important. I have a marketing background.
yes, it is. Okay, so I just asked for unanimous consent based on that discussion as far as the R tomorrow email, and that it will funnel to the town emails, and
Good.
everybody in agreement with that?
Okay.
Good year.
Can I get a point of clarification?
Yes.
Is R tomorrow, are we spelling out R or is it the letter R? I can't recall.
I think,
I thought it was the letter.
I think it's the letter.
Okay.
But we can still discuss that. I mean, it's not, I think, set until we've like officially thrown it out there.
Thanks.
Great. All right. And the next item under old business is formalizing communications. And this was Brad's request as far as responding to CPC emails. Brad? I think you're muted. Yeah, still can't hear you.
Let's see if I can ask him to unmute.
Oh,
There you go.
there we go.
Now you're here.
Okay, yeah, I was in Zoom, sorry. Just wondered if we could have a policy about what goes out to everybody on the committee, and who makes that decision if it's not in writing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just putting something in writing, but I don't have time to get copies of every partial email that goes out. When it's going to go, you know, I submitted a request to you Peter, and Michaela to go to Don, and then that was, everybody in the group was copied on it, which is okay, but then they have to get copied again on it when Don responds, and it's just like, you know, why can't we, if we need to get these to everybody, can't we just do the final email?
Committee thoughts on this? Okay, what I've researched this, Brad, and so as a point of clarification, this committee derives its authority from the select board. We were appointed by the select board. This committee exists, and we serve at the pleasure of the select board. Therefore, there really isn't any need for a vote in how we proceed with communications. We are actually required to follow the process that the select board and actually every other committee and board in the town of Raymond follows. And that is that all communications are shared among all members. And so to be quite...
Peter, I haven't seen anything in writing, that's why I'm asking. Can you just shoot that out to us and then we'll know? And I'm fine, if that's what it needs to be.
Well, I guess I'd ask the committee, is it needed that you have this in writing?
I'd like to have it in writing. If everybody else doesn't, that's okay, but I'd like to have a
I'm not sure it's in writing. It's a protocol that's followed. And the committee that's besides the Board of Selectmen that is most involved is the Budget Committee. And to me, this is similar. I mean, we're not talking about finances, but we're talking about different issues and you know, concepts in the future of the community. And so I understand, I guess, the idea of being, you know, private communications to the chair, to the staff, and then coming back with the answers. But I think for the committee to be fully informed, it would be advantageous to have some of that information. If people don't want to look at it, they don't have to look at it, but they would know what's being asked, what the answers are, and have a feeling for the process as it moves forward. Now, with the Budget Committee, I mean, we used to have people who would shoot questions at us directly, and frequently, and it was burdensome for the staff. And so the chair would sometimes winnow the questions, so people are asking the same question, and that would happen a lot. And so we found it to be an efficient way to deal with it, to have them come through the chair, or the co-chairs in this case, and then to me, and I would answer if I could, or get the answers from the staff, then send it back through that channel, and then it would go out to everybody, so everybody's is equally informed and has the same information and knowledge. But I don't think it's not something that's been codified. I don't believe. Sue?
I'm looking and I don't
Yeah,
think so.
but it's the protocol that we've followed for many years now with the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
So how does that interact with the task force, for example?
Excuse me?
How does that interact with a task force? I've been on a couple of task forces where we had 4 people. Does that mean, should I interpret that every email we send within that task force, the whole CPC needs to be copied on?
Well, I guess my sense would be this one, Brad, that more transparency is never a bad thing. And to kind of echo what Don said, as far as time constraints and issues involving responding to and reading emails, the committee, although I wouldn't advise it, certainly should read the emails. But the co-chairs and the town manager are compelled to read every email. And therefore, having a situation where we can share those emails back and those answers back, and keeping the committee informed on what questions are being asked and how they're being asked, I believe is important. I would tell you also that even though it may not be codified in policy, my statement still stands in my research that any committee or board that is created by a higher board or entity is compelled to follow their process. So as an example, at our first meeting, I believe there was a question about, and we took a vote on whether we were going to use Robert's rules. I have since then learned that there was no need for that vote, because similarly, Robert's rules are used by every committee and board in the town of Raymond. And we were created by the select board, and therefore we are compelled to follow their process. I guess I'd ask for any other feedback from this committee as to whether that needs to be codified when the rest of the boards and committees in the town don't feel the need to codify that. I just ask for some more feedback.
I don't feel the need to codify it. We're using the same practice as the other boards. Let's stay in line with the other boards. That'd be my vote, Brad.
I think it is best practices for us to share communications. We are, counting on each other for ideas, for questions, for input, and I think it's important that we all sort of know where we're at too, and with our understanding of different parts. Because a lot of this is not going to be just about election surveys and picking logos. I mean, we're going to have probably more in-depth questions, and you may have, someone may have a question that someone's already answered, and if we're not sharing that, it's duplicate work for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So I think that it is just best practices. It doesn't need to be voted on or put in writing.
I think as we start to utilize the town emails a bit more too, some of this will get flushed out naturally, because we have the ability to, it's essentially not the same inbox as everything else that we see. So we can carve out some time, and so it's not necessarily in our face all the time. We can make it separate from the rest of our lives. So I think some of the problems that we're thinking about here will not necessarily be a problem as this continues on, just by the virtue of how we're setting it up.
Well, if there were some way that the emails could be prioritized by whatever, it would make it a lot easier of, oh yeah, this is one I should read, as opposed to, wait a second, I just read this one from somebody else. But, there are bigger wars to fight than this one, so I will go along. So what I'm hearing is every email that we send to somebody else on a task force or committee, we should copy the whole committee and Don and Sue, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. What we said was that if you're asking a question, of the staff or the town manager, it goes through the chair, co-chair, to us. We answer it, then it comes back down to the entire committee. Now, if you're, I don't know, I mean, I suppose you're going to have, when you have task force meetings, I would think you'd gather or together, or maybe you do it via Zoom. So I'm not sure how much communication there would be, out of that venue. But as long as you're not a quorum, the task force is not a quorum of the comprehensive plan committee, I believe, I'll check with our town clerk right now, but I believe we're okay on that, if you
Well,
wanted to correspond between one another.
A subcommittee or a task force will communicate with the entire committee when they report out what they found.
Right, but I think he's talking about the emails between them.
Yeah, so while they're working on that, they're working amongst themselves. That's the kind of the point of the task force, is to
Right.
involve fewer people. And then they bring it back to the whole committee and give them the feedback then, and give them the opportunity
Right.
to chime in if they need to, but.
That's how I understood Brad's question was, if we have a task force, let's say there's 4 of us, we're just going amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
And then, we're allowed to have that communication without emailing everybody, because the whole purpose of the task force is
Correct.
Yeah.
Just,
It's just when you ask broader questions, or, questions related to policy or procedure, or, seeking a direction from the town staff. It's just the town's policy to copy everyone. And so.
And I think that the operative word here, and maybe when we discussed this last, not everyone on the committee was satisfied with Sue and my explanation as to what governs the communications of a task force, and why a task force does not fall under the open meeting law of the state of Maine. And it's primarily, and one of the reasons that I made it clear, and I intend to with any meeting that I chair, to state up front that there is a quorum available. And as Dawn had mentioned, that's the operative word, quorum. Therefore, a task force of less than a quorum for this committee, which is less than 6, are not bound by the rules of the open meeting laws of the state of Maine, because task force or subcommittees have no authority to make decisions. What they do is discuss amongst themselves, formulate a plan, bring it back to the full committee for a vote in a public meeting. And therefore, for a task force to all of a sudden say, everybody on the committee who wants to join us can, is really asking for an illegal meeting. Because a meeting needs to be noticed in advance. A public meeting needs to be noticed in advance and needs to have an agenda, a time, and a date set. So just as
and you need to keep a record.
And there has to be minutes.
We have an electronic policy, but we also generally keep written minutes as well.
So hopefully that clarifies the question of task force or subcommittees and what their communications are in a setting outside of a full public meeting with a quorum. And does that seem to be clear for everyone?
I think that's clear.
Yeah.
Can I just walk through a potential example just to make sure we're all on the same page? So I think a lot of, the back and forth in the inbox would be, for example, trying to schedule a task force meeting, right? Does this time work? Does this date work? You could get 10 emails just trying to figure that out. That could all stay within the task force. When the task force then maybe has a few questions that we would like to approach town staff with, we will send an email to the entire comprehensive plan, us,
No.
No. You
Send
send
it
it
to the
to
chair,
Peter and I.
co-chair.
I think
Okay.
what we're
So
trying
I
to
guess
say
that's-
is, at what the point at which it's shared with everyone, the whole email, right? The questions and the answers
Right.
is when we get the answers.
Okay.
And then we're talking about, we would then respond,
To the
Peter
whole
and
group.
I would then respond with the answers
Okay.
plus questions to the entire
To
committee.
everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not trying to overburden everybody. We're just,
Got it. So it's task force on the way in, but then on the way out, everyone has the answers and the full record. Okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand that, because that's different from what I understood earlier. If we have a question of town staff, we send that to Kayla and Peter, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then one of you will send it to whoever well, Don and Sue were generally copied on that. You are or are not copying the rest of the committee when you send it to staff?
After.
I thought you said we have to, but I heard Kayla say, I thought it was no, only the answer.
The process would be, if a task force or subcommittee has a question for the town staff, they would direct that question to the co-chairs. The co-chairs would get in touch with Dawn. What Dawn would do, the co-chairs would get in touch with Dawn with the questions from the subcommittee or the task force. Dawn would then reach out, if necessary, to other town staff if he did not have the answer, and he would respond back to the co-chairs. The co-chairs would then respond back to the entire committee.
Right, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be a subcommittee or a task force. It could be, and most typically, is an individual with a question. And it works the
Right.
same way.
Correct.
The answer comes back to the whole group.
Correct.
That's the policy.
It's
Correct.
a policy.
Let's go with it.
No, I'm cool with that, but I've just been seeing emails go out from the co-chairs that copy the whole group where they're, I put a question to Dawn, goes to the co-chairs copy the whole group, and that's what I was saying is just way too much for me. So.
Yeah, and Brett,
The answer is when the answer's back, that gets shared with everybody.
that's correct.
Okay.
Good.
We're all clear? Good.
Good to go.
All righty. Under new business.
One
Go
more
to the logo.
thing.
Logo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's right. Kayla,
Last time I skipped something completely, but I was so excited about talking about the election survey.
Kayla's gonna talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan logo,
Yeah.
which I believe we all have in the packet and hopefully have had a chance to look at.
So Sue had mentioned just a creation of a logo to put on the website. So I just threw something together. I'd be curious, what you like for colors, if you like it, if you hate it. I'm okay with that. I did get some feedback, and that was that Raymond Tomorrow was confusing. The big R was confusing. So I would welcome, and I can handle criticism well. So if you don't like it, or you like the concept or idea of it, but you'd like to change it, we can do that. Or we can just scrap it all together and just
Yeah.
call ourselves a comp plan.
And that criticism did not come from within the committee.
No, it did not.
So-
I will
so it was
clarify
not
that. It was not a committee
communication.
communication.
Oh.
But I personally did receive feedback from it. So those are things that we should think about. And also why I sort of mentioned we want to keep things not confusing. So for us, in my opinion, our tomorrow is not confusing. We've been talking about it. We know what we're talking about. But it is possible that others are going to be like, what is this? So I think we should, talk about that and consider that. And I was also thinking, even if we like this general concept, if I just moved the 2 over, that might solve some of the confusion anyway. So these are easy peasy, cheesy things to do.
Moving the 2 sounds good to me.
Moving the 2
Yeah.
sounds good. Other than that, you like it?
I like the one in the upper right-hand corners.
That was my
You like the
favorite as well.
arrow?
The arrow with the circle, I thought was pretty sharp.
Okay.
I like the brighter colors. They seem to stand out a little bit more to me than the grays and blues.
Brad,
Yeah, I always like to look at something like this, and by the way, Kayla, thank you very much. It's a lot of time to put into these things and thoughts and going back and forth, so thank you. I kind of like to look at them, how are we going to use this logo? Is it on our letterhead when letters go out? Are we going to get coffee mugs produced and put the logo on them? Are we going to have a banner for our meetings? Any thoughts in the group of where we would use it? And the reason I'm asking that question is some colors are a lot more difficult to replicate, or they don't look, if you look at my favorite of the colors is the one in the bottom right corner. On the other hand, there's not a lot of contrast there if you're on, in a big room or something. And so I wonder if we ought to, kind of plea this through. Where are we going to use the logo, and then, maybe black and white or blue, black and white like we have in the upper left-hand corner is what we ought to look at. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just throwing that out to help us. the decision-making process.
I would think you'd use it in probably all the instances you outlined. I didn't think about a banner. We have one for the town. That's something you could certainly do to hang behind you. And certainly you could put it on the website and then on any kind of stationery, electronic or otherwise, you might use, and any sort of website presence. And we have agreement between you and me on colors. I like Raymond colors, which are the colors in the bottom right, but the contrast is a problem on that one. Those are the colors I suggested to you, but the contrast problem is a problem, so would have to work on that. But I don't know, I'm kind of hung up on the blue and green thing, and that's what I wanted on our new recreation bus, but our rec director turns out to have a different sense of blue and green than I do. So anyhow.
Yes, just I guess a little bit background so we all understand. I tried to make the R match our Raymond Town logo, as you can see, at the best I kind of could. I wanted it to be a little sweepy and big. As far as where we would put it, well, everywhere. We would put it on the website, you'd be clicking on it to get to our page. If we put out the survey, that would be on the survey. It would be on our communication. I mean, it could be wherever we wanted to put it.
I think once you get something you like, and if it communicates the message you want to send, you'd put it everywhere you can.
It's a mostly printed copy, I guess is what I'm hearing, right?
And T-shirts.
As opposed to the banner.
I would think that you might have posters around town, that we've done that before.
Yeah.
You'd have the website, you'd have your communications. You could, I don't know, they're probably, you could put banners on the Little League fence or something, that, I like the banner idea. That's something I didn't really think about. So the more you can get it out there, the better. People will say, what's that? And then maybe they'll look into it.
I think another thing that we should decide is if we really are going to stick and go with R tomorrow. That's the other big decision here, besides just the logo. And I guess from others' perspectives, that may be quite confusing. So I just maybe we should give it a few minutes of thought on whether R tomorrow makes sense on a mass scale or really just to this room.
I got the same citizen called me, so I said to talk to Kayla. And the idea was you can do better. So I don't know.
The suggestion was just keep comprehensive plan and just scrap the R tomorrow altogether. But I kind of really like the R tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think we've seen from other comprehensive plans in other communities that there's got to be some type of marketing element to these new comprehensive
Yes.
plans, particularly if we're trying to fill state requirements of community involvement, and branding's a big part of that. So I would say that I like our tomorrow. I think that if we need to clarify, we can figure out a way to do that, but I think it's important to have some brand around what we're doing.
Right. I just thought of another one, by the way, and that's the Roadrunner. We should put it in the Roadrunner somehow every month.
A little update,
So
maybe.
a little
with the
update
logo.
with the logo, yeah.
I think if we make a video, sorry, John, we can put CompPlan and at the end, R tomorrow.
Because Kayla worked for us, we also did, and Bill's out back, I talked to him briefly before the meeting, we did videos about, different activities of the town. You could do a video about the comprehensive plan process. You used to be, I guess, the person who would interview the employees. You did a great job with that. Could be her, could be somebody else, but I thought those were really effective and we got a lot of positive feedback about them.
Frank has a comment, I believe.
Frank?
I would love the R tomorrow, and I think it could go beyond this committee in Raymond down the road. I think we can get people to kind of coalesce around that as a recognition of where Raymond is going.
Well, I'm gonna go against the grain and say I prefer Raymond tomorrow.
I'm with you. I think I need the 2 to be on the starboard side of the R.
Yeah, I like that the R is so prominent
Yeah.
and that it can be read as R tomorrow, but I like seeing Raymond on there too.
I think we already decided the 2 needs to be moved over.
Yeah.
But are you saying that you rather have us call, our brand be Raymond tomorrow instead of our tomorrow.
I think in shorthand, we amongst ourselves and those who choose to call it our tomorrow.
Okay.
If you're with it, you're going to say our tomorrow. But the formal term is Raymond
Why
tomorrow.
don't you
I think it
test
will be
this
more
on your children?
universally understood and
Test
recognized.
this on your
if you
children
put
and your
the-
mother and see, what does that mean if you haven't showed them it already? See if they come up with it.
You want to know something funny?
They don't know.
Mommy, help me.
Oh, Mommy helped you, okay. Well, not Mommy then, try somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are the things that we need to sort of hash out before we throw I think if I just move the 2 over, which to be honest with you, now that I look at it, I'm not even quite sure why it's over there. But I think the big decision is it Raymond tomorrow or the R tomorrow?
Is the committee ready to basically make that decision tonight so that we at least decide on what the title of the logo would be?
Well, I mean, the logo could still have our Raymond in there. I don't, even if it is our tomorrow, if it's capital. So I don't know that we need to necessarily decide that. I think that could be independent of the logo. Because I do think Raymond should be part of the logo, but I think that the prominent R, people then would understand what the R stands for.
That makes sense. The logo is still going to say Raymond tomorrow.
Yep.
But right, we can sort of say we're R tomorrow.
I think the next step would then be implications for
Email.
Is it R tomorrow or is it Raymond tomorrow? Because I think that's the more critical question, less the logo.
And I think that's actually what I thought we were talking about too. I think I always intended for it to be Raymond tomorrow on the logo, but using our tomorrow in our vernacular is how we present it to folks. And Raymond tomorrow, our tomorrow, and I think that can be part of the conversation. And that's how we rally people around what we're doing.
We could also have like a subtitle, like Raymond tomorrow or our tomorrow, the comprehensive plan. So then people understand what it is.
I think the email address as our tomorrow sounds fine to me. I mean, that's, the shorter the better, I think, when it comes to email.
Or tomorrow@raymond.org.
Is that what the...
It would have, it would be raymondmaine.org.
raymondmaine.org.
Yeah, so R tomorrow, not Raymond.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good example. For email, it would be the short version.
Yep.
But if you were in like a legal battle or something, you'd say Raymond tomorrow.
Commonly referred to as our tomorrow.
I think we're still branding ourselves using Raymond tomorrow and R tomorrow interchangeably. So I would agree with that. So I will move the 2 over, and I guess the next choice is just settling on the color.
This green to me looks a little bit more like teal. Is that what it's intended to be, or do other people see it as more of a true green?
It doesn't print out well.
It doesn't print out well, but the teal and the blue is more in line with the logo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not a green.
It's on our stationery, it's on our town seal, it's on our vehicles.
It's on the, those colors are also the electric vehicle.
Yeah, they are. Who picked those?
Maybe we need a picture of the salmon then, the landlocked salmon, as part of the logo somehow.
Could be a fish instead of an arrow.
It really doesn't have to be those colors. I'm just pointing out that those are the colors that we use on.
I mean, they certainly
everything
are
else.
the prettiest, but I don't know if they're the most,
Right.
they
They just
don't
don't-
necessarily stand out
You
as
need more
much.
contrast, yeah.
I mean, personally, I guess the orange and the blue and black stand out very well. I personally like the arrow and the curved comprehensive plan the best. That's me personally.
Me too.
I like black a lot. I wear a lot of black, so I kind of like the gray and the blue, but I understand that's not poppy.
Well, I think we could definitely have like a black and white version of the logo. I think that's pretty common. You usually have like the color background with everything white versus the colored logo on a white background. I mean, we could just have the color version, but we're gonna have black and white minutes. We want to make sure it looks good, and you know, kind of that print format. There's no reason we can't use the same graphic, just
Yeah.
black and white and maybe like a gray tone, grayscale.
Right, yeah, because the orange and the blues would sort of kind of do the grayscale on their own. If we did that with the tealish color, it's all going to kind of meld into one.
Yeah, need the contrast.
Yeah. I think it sounds like we have a direction. Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I like the yellow. I think it looks like a sunrise. And it definitely pops the most. But I think it looks good with that blue too.
What
So
if you
I
went with a
think we
lighter version of
combine
the
it.
blue?
Lighter version of
The one on the lower right,
Lower
like
right.
this one.
you know, made them more
A little
different
bit
from
more
one
of a
another.
contrast.
Oh, I can do that.
Because I'm getting your point on the yellow, the contrast, right? But
Yeah,
that's
it-
probably, you're not going
it
to get
catches
that
your
kind
eye.
of contrast though, because that's
Yeah.
pretty sharp.
On the blue, if I don't know if we could do it in Word, but if you could just put a white border around the Raymond Tomorrow, it would pop on that background. Just on the, not like a square, but just like an outline of the letters. It would like make the words pop out from
Yeah.
that circle.
I'm like
Do
thinking like
we want
kids' jerseys
me to
and
go
stuff
back
like this
to
is
the drawing table?
Do
And now that we've had some feedback, some time to talk about it, and just sort of recreate a couple more, do we like do you just like you like the circle though, right? So
I think
Or
the
you just like
circle's
the
good.
yellow?
I like the yellow. I mean, I'd be fine.
with the arrow.
Yeah, potentially.
Or
Can you give
potentially-
us some colors with the arrow? See if a yellow in the arrow
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
And make a couple options. I personally like. I'm with you. I like the arrow with the round text. I think is pretty sharp.
Okay. So I can play around a little bit more with that based on feedback tonight. And we can talk about it next month.
Sure, it'd be possible, Kayla, to maybe get them out prior to the meeting so individuals have an opportunity to kind of look at them and come to the meeting prepared to make a decision?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, if we can include that in the agenda for next meeting. Great,
Do you mean outside of the e-packet?
excuse me?
You mean send them out outside of the e-packet?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. If as soon as the Kayla has them available, if it's close to when the EPEX is coming out, that's fine too.
And if I may, there's one other thing in your e-packet, you may have wondered why it's there.
Yes.
That's just before the logo. Kevin did find that it would take about 2 seconds to make a QR code.
Yes.
And if you scan that QR code, it takes you right to the comprehensive plan
Excellent.
presentation.
Excellent.
So if you do want to put that on any kind of mailings and things, he can make it for whatever and to make them go to a survey or go to a email or go to something.
Excellent. Works. Very good. And thanks for that, Sue. All right, moving on to new business. We got 2 agenda items here for Dawn. I guess we could combine them, Dawn. I know that Sue got out to us
Well, it's really pretty simple, and so here's how it is.
Okay.
You have to make your request in time for it to get in the budget, so that's the calendar. We provided the town budget schedule, so you can see that. I can work with the date that you have in there, and it corresponds, nicely with the end of January kind of deal with the finance director, and I'll be working on the budget. So that's all fine, but the problem will be that if you were to do the consultant selection cost blind, which I think is a great way to do it, it doesn't work for that. So the proposal that I would have would be to have some person who was a confidential person and wouldn't be involved in the interviews. And I'm suggesting our town clerk, and she's agreed to do that, once we get the proposals in, there would be 2 envelopes. One's the proposal that goes off to the committee for the process with all delivered municipal speed. The clerk opens the other one, which is the cost proposals, doesn't tell me or anybody else, who sent what, and gives us a range to work with, and then we could, along with the 10,000 we already have, put together a reasonable budget proposal. Now let's say by the time we get to the end, it isn't enough. We've got that placeholder in the budget, so then we just go back to the Board of Selectmen and say, we need more, or if it's too much, we can reduce it. But I have to have some sort of a number, and the idea is, and I know there's some interest to just picking a number and putting in there. But I don't know what that number would be. Once we get the proposals back, we will know. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I do it.
I'm in agreement with that process. What does the committee think?
And you know, Sue's really good at that. She won't spill the beans.
Well, I can be wrong.
But I am curious. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a sense. My sense is that the cost is going to be pretty consistent with what it might have been back in '04. I'm seeing revale bids come in like in the early 2000s. I think people want the work. So we'll see.
And if I may, to kind of build on a bit of what Dawn said, the budget figures aren't really, they're set in Jello in January. They aren't set in stone until the selectmen actually vote on the warrant articles and approve them. So during the joint meetings in February and March with the department heads, that's when a lot of the tweaking of the budget numbers can happen. And so in January, you would have a fairly, a range. By the time the joint meetings came along, you would have a much better idea of how much you're going to be spending and needing. So you could probably get a more accurate number into this budget season. You just won't have it in January. But you'd have a good
Feel.
a good feel for it, and you'll have a.
And it's also possible that we get, before the budget has to go to a vote, and we do make changes right up to the last minute, that we'll have the, you know, scope of service. And I don't know if we'll end up changing it after we meet with our finalist consultant. We probably will, we usually do. And so then we could, you know, talk to them about the payment, you know, on the price certain bid. And unless, of course, we adjust that as well, because we reserve that ability should we change the scope of service or decide to be Raymond, which is, sometimes we do. I'm not really suggesting that, but sometimes we do negotiate, you know, pricing if it looks like it's not the pricing that we had expected. And so, so that's, as long as we get the you know, the final number before it has to go, you know, to the town meeting, that's what really matters. And so you also asked me about the accessing the funds, and so that's also simple. Once the funds are approved by the Board of Selectmen Budget Finance Committee, they go to the town meeting. That's the legislative body of the town. You get your town meeting warrant approval. Now comes the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1, poof, you have the money. So then you draw on your money, typically with invoices from your consultant or other things that you might need to purchase or obtain for your efforts. And so the consultant invoices would come to the town, the finance director, typically, you know, the department head involved or the town manager, you know, with things like legal bills and whatnot, I would look those over and approve them. So probably somebody from the committee would be in a position to review the consultant submittals, make sure that they're accurate and that they're, you know, in the, you know, bona fide for payment. So that's how that would work. And then we would issue a check to that consultant. Now, if it was something that you wanted, you would just send that request to us. Once your budget's approved, that's all you. You know, nobody's going to, you know, tell you how to do that. But if you do it in a way that, you know, is not consistent with your approvals, then they'll talk to you. If you overexpend, or we won't let that happen, but because we'll tell you about that. But it's really just invoicing and paying, and you'll have that amount of money. And the other part I left out is the phasing. Once we get to the, you know, the final consultant, we can put, you know, an amount of money in this budget and then plan on an amount of money in the next budget. And that'll be another thing that we can adjust, put in a placeholder that we think's right, and then adjust it just before the town meeting. And so maybe this year we don't need so much money because we have the 10 to go with it, and then next year more money. So maybe it's over a 2-year process that we break down the consultant costs, and then whatever else you need. You got to figure out whatever else you need. If you want banners, you want whatever you want, you're going to have to give me a number on that.
Brad?
He's not muted. Now he is.
I'm double muted.
You're muted, Brad.
Somehow. It's got an odd signal.
Yeah, he's got it muted in the bottom, see?
Yeah, but it's an odd symbol. It isn't his, it's
He lost
his
his
phone.
internet.
I think his phone, either his phone's muted or I think he's lost his connection.
Yeah.
You could try turning your video off, Brad, so that you're just on audio.
I do hear something.
Yeah, I thought it might be through my headset, but it's not. I can vaguely hear him.
I don't
know
hear
what
him.
else. I don't
Have,
hear him either.
have him try it again.
Can you try again, Brad?
Yeah,
There you go.
Sue, I don't know if you can hear me,
I
but
can now.
the last time you sent me a message that said, ask Brad to unmute, and I clicked on that, and then you could hear me. Do you have that option again?
Well, I don't need it. We can hear you.
Okay. But if that happens again, just, it should show that I'm muted, and if you send me that message, Sue, I can click on it, and
Okay.
then I'll be back again. So Don, I just wanted to ask, we've got 10,000 out there now. If we needed, if we wanted to buy a banner hypothetically for $500, what is that process within the committee to access those funds? Do we wait till another committee meeting and then formally vote on it and then order the banner then and then you release the funds?
You could decide tonight you want a banner. You decide tonight you want a banner vote, delegate that to somebody on the staff or somebody on the committee, your choice. Order your banner, it comes in, we pay for it. So, but I think you need to, for your expenditures, I would say you need a vote of the committee. But you could do that tonight.
Okay.
You could do that tonight.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting a banner necessarily, particularly not tonight. but-
Something else, if it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It does have to be approved at a committee meeting, and we have to wait until the next committee meeting before we can get approval. Is that correct? You can't send out an email vote, correct?
No, you wouldn't do an email vote, but the question would be whether, and I don't know, I'll ask our clerk on this one, whether something like that for a committee of this type would, need to be a noticed agenda item. I'm thinking no.
Well, if it was to go out and get a new planner, then yes.
Yeah, something substantial.
substantive.
But if you're doing de minimis, expenditures, I would think somebody could make a motion for that expenditure.
Yeah.
You have a
If the
second
task force
discussion and
needs to
approval.
buy extra pom-poms, then I
Yeah,
think we
yeah.
should probably
Yeah.
just wing that one.
I'm still finding pom-poms.
But if you're gonna recommend, a substantial, or actually, that's a good point too. You're not really recommending. You're deciding.
Correct.
When you pick a planner, you're deciding.
Correct.
You don't need the selectmen to recommend it. You're gonna present it to them, what you're doing. And they will, by the way,
Well, they
before it goes to the final town meeting vote, it'll go to the planning board at least, and the selectmen. They will have a say, and they'll give you feedback on the plan, but not on picking the planner. That's you.
But it doesn't have to go to the selectmen for their approval, correct?
No.
No, not the planner, not the expenditures of the committee. Just the plan.
Okay, I guess we got that incorrect earlier, because the feedback I got from somebody was that the feedback I got was that it needed to, I can find the email, but that we needed to go to the select board. So you're saying we do not need to go to the
Yeah,
select board?
you do need to go to the selectmen board for the final plan. You don't need to go to them for expenditures within your appropriated funds,
Once appropriated,
once appropriated.
But they're
But you do
totally-
have to go to them to get them
to
appropriated.
get them appropriated. I think
So that's maybe where the confusion's coming.
Yeah.
So you have to ask the Board of Selectmen, I put it in the budget. I'm asking the Board of Selectmen on behalf of you for the amount of money that you tell me you need and want. And then they'll deliberate with the Budget Committee on that and hopefully approve it, or they may talk with you about amending it, but more likely approve it. And then it will go on through the process. Then it's, the appropriation is approved by the town, the legislative body, the town meeting. Then it's in your account, if you will, in the town's chart of accounts. Then you expend from it. But you don't need their approval and recommendation for individual expenditures of your appropriated funds once they're in your account, if that makes sense.
Or any personnel you hire.
Or any personnel you hire, that's an expense, yeah.
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 Okay, so what I'm hearing is we do not need to go to the selectmen. We can make the choice of planners, is that correct?
Right. And you can spend the money as you like towards your charge from your appropriated funds without the selectmen.
Okay, so that being the case, we're going to get into the RFP shortly, but we're going to have to adjust that timeline because we did include an extensive timeline that was delayed by going to the selectmen.
I think it's fine the way it is, Brad. I think there's enough flexibility. What we're hearing tonight is enough flexibility in the 2-month period between January and March to get our decision made and our recommendation together for the selectmen. We think Planner A is the right one, and here's the pricing would go with that. And during our deliberations of interviewing planners, which will be taking place in February largely, right?
Basically, the interviews would take place throughout all of February.
And by the end of February, we'll have a fix on who we want, and that's plenty of time to get a request into the select board that that's the one we want, and we'd look to the select board to decide on that in March.
Well, the selectmen don't decide on the planner.
I mean, they would approve the appropriation request.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Review it and review it and make a recommendation to the
appropriation
townspeople, yeah.
request. So the timeline that Sean put together was spot on, and we're good to go on the draft, on the final draft, I think, that we have.
My concerns about timelines are you have to meet the budget timeline, and if you were looking for a consultant, I mean, you wouldn't want to put a timeline in not knowing, what and I guess we do sort of kind of know that it's a couple of year process, but I wouldn't want to put in a too aggressive timeline that might not be something that a particular consultant could do. And as a practical matter, what's going to happen is you're going to hire your consultant, then you're going to sit down together and develop the timeline.
Right.
That's what's going to happen.
That's what's going to happen.
So you don't want to push somebody out of the running in the beginning, but yet it is good to have a timeline, and so so some loose timelines, maybe a little longer than what you really need would be better than shorter. And then if you want to shorten it up, you can do that.
So as a point of clarification, just for myself, is this. What we're discussing is the appropriation basically has to come through the select board through budget finance. The selection of the contract planner is our selection decision alone. Mm-hmm. However, let's say we decide on contract planner A. However, the appropriation is far in excess of what budget finance and selectmen are willing to approve. Then in fact what they are doing is they're telling you, well, we're not telling you who to select, but we're telling you we can't pay for this.
Mm-hmm. They can do that, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm hopeful that I've never seen that happen, yeah. But they can do that.
Sure. But that would lend to some of this confusion in the conversation that we have. But it's clear to all of us, our selection of the contract planner is our choice.
But we still have to hit this selection date regardless.
Based on releasing the RFP and the timeline and the like, yes. Yeah.
And the thing I would do, it's just good form, would be when you do major milestones, you would want to, perhaps the co-chairs would want to send something to me and I'd make the selectmen aware, or we can write it, staff can write it, but I think it has more meaning if somebody like Peter, Kayla writes a little, here's where we're at in the process. I think the selectmen like to keep track of what's going on. I know they watch the meetings, and yeah.
May I ask a question, actually? It's kind of related to that. When we decide as a group who we want as our planner, this is a public meeting. Like if we said, okay, we vote on A, for example.
You can interview the planner. That was a question I think that was asked in one of the communications that came in, that you didn't get. But you can interview the planner in out of the public domain. You don't have to do the interview in public. You can do it in public if you want to, but I don't think that would be the typical way to do it. You could have the whole committee do it, you could have a subcommittee do it, but you typically do it in a private interview. And then when you select somebody, you know, you'd come out and take a vote, and, you know, well, you'd actually talk about it, you know, in that, what amounts to an executive session. You'd come out, have a public discussion, then a public vote.
That's my question. So you're
Yeah.
having a public vote on
The final selection.
A, but that's all kind of, you know, that's all kind of aired. So wouldn't they kind of know Planner A? So let's just say we were voting on, well, Planner A or Planner B, because that meeting is kind of public. Couldn't they watch in and?
You're talking about the planners?
Yeah, if when we're coming down to the plan, we're voting on the actual planner. Does that make sense? What I'm asking is kind of like, if we, as a committee or as a group here, we're voting on if we want Planner A or Planner B. That needs to be in one of.
I would think that before you get to the meeting, you'll know which one you want. You won't be voting between two. You'll have already discussed it and have a direction. Then you'll come out and have a, you know, a public discussion about why you are hiring Planner A or Planner B, not one or the other, but one. And then you'll vote on that one.
I would agree that would be the process.
And the folks that did the interviewing would be the ones that would be making recommendations.
Right.
Yeah, and if you had a subcommittee, they would be making a recommendation. You know, we did the interviews, here's what we came up with, this is our recommendation, you have a discussion, you know, that's the one. But you could have a situation where you decide all of you want to meet the consultants, and then you'd have to do it the other way.
What about the proposals that come in? Well, I'll save it till we get to the RFP.
Okay, so Frank, Brad, as far as the process that Dawn outlined, as far as the sealed bids being separate from the other, you're in agreement with that as a process?
Sealed bids?
Sealed bids basically going to the clerk of the town?
Sounds good.
I'm in agreement.
And the rest of us are in agreement with that process.
And what will happen in the end, I mean, you will know at some point, you'll do your interviews, you'll pick your person, then you can, you know, open your envelopes and see what the pricing was for everybody, and that may or may not influence your decision, but I think it's important to pick somebody on the quality of their proposal and the work you might get, not on the price. And there's a real tendency, if somebody has a cheap price, to say that's the one. But it's, when you hire professional services, whether it's a lawyer or an architect or something like that, you know, it's also the service you get. And so that's just, I was schooled on this many years ago by an architect in Brunswick when I was a young man, and at first it seemed kind of, you know, maybe not the thing, but it really is, I think, the way to do it.
All right, so we're in agreement as far as that
Yeah.
process. Good. Thank you, Don.
How will those sealed bids be opened, and who will be there, and how will that information?
Well, I think what I said was that we would have the clerk, you know, open the bids when they come in so that we could build the budget, and then she'd keep that confidential. And then, you know, she could put them back in envelopes and reseal them, and then you could open them after you've done your interviews.
Interesting. So you're suggesting that we do not have any idea what their proposed bid is until after the interviews?
Correct.
That's correct.
So you'd be selecting cost blind. You wouldn't be selecting based on, well, you know, somebody will do it for 20,000, somebody wants 60,000. You know, I think there's a tendency to go with most people, maybe not all people, but most people might say, you know, we're getting the same thing for less money, let's do that.
Sure, I believe in looking, and we'll discuss it more in the review of the RFP, but it's right in there that basically that part of the decision criteria is the lowest bidder that satisfies all of the selection criteria.
That's step one, yeah, to determine if they satisfy.
Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable with that, Don, and the reason I say that is you heard the Zoom interview we had with what's his name of the Maine State Planning Office, Bill, is it?
Tom?
And how Kennebunkport paid $500,000 for their planner. And, you know, what if that that firm puts in a proposal and we say, wow, this is great.
Well, no, you don't have to accept it. I don't think you're following me. What happens is that's all behind closed doors. You do your interviews in private. You select your top person or firm, and then, you know, you've had your interviews. The people go away. You have a discussion amongst yourselves. If it's a subcommittee, then it's a report to the full committee. If it's the full committee, then you do that in what amounts to an executive session, deliberate about, you know, who you wanted and why, take a vote, open the envelope. You find out it's the Kennebunkport firm and it's, you know, $300,000. And then probably you're going to revisit that and say, that's not going to work for us. They're going to be washed out because of their cost. It's not that you're compelled to hire the firm that you think is the best. It's that you know, don't let the cost of the service influence your decision.
Yeah.
Right, but we have the option to say, oh, no, thank you.
And you can also reject them all. You don't have any obligation to do anything you don't want to do.
So the decision's not made cost blind.
Right.
The final decision's not made
It's
cost blind.
two-step.
The evaluation is done cost blind.
Right. And that's the distinction, and I think that it makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
And didn't you
That's
say
great.
there was some discussion with regard to the range? Would we know the range in advance, or
Sue will.
Sue will? So
Sue will,
is it
and you will
possible-
too, because I'm going to
Yeah.
plug it in the budget.
Right.
I'm going. You can know the range, sure,
Right,
but you
so
won't
if
know the
we-
individuals.
If we get a proposal for 300,000, we can say, you know, that's outside of the range of what we're looking for.
Yeah,
So
and
we
I
can
would tell
support
that if you got one for 300,000, I would say that's outside the range. We got to.
Would you like to come
I
back?
think it wouldn't be my decision; it would be your decision. But my recommendation would be that's not getting built into the budget.
Right.
Is there room for negotiation at all if there's somebody
yeah.
that we really like and their
Pricey.
their price
Yeah,
point's
we could
too
say, oh,
high? We
sorry.
can
Well,
work with them.
That's the negotiation piece. You know, you got a bid and you're asking them for a price certain. But when we did the community-wide survey, we had Pat Murphy of Pan Atlantic who did a great job, and he had the low bid. And the selectman said to me, "Go back and make it less." So I did, and he was happy. I mean, it took a little. You know, I knocked a few thousand off, and that's kind of the Raymond way sometimes. But you can do that too, or you can accept the bid as it is, or you can adjust it based on the services. You know, you can do anything you want that way.
But if you had two candidates that were very, very similar, then you open the bid packet and realize this one is 40,000 more than this one, that may make your decision.
That may change it.
Yeah.
That we like the one better, but not that much better.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put my 2 cents in as somebody who's done a lot of these in the past. I think we're all mature enough to realize that we're not looking for the low bidder. We're looking for somebody who can do the job at a competitive fee. But if somebody could do it for 40 and we're comfortable, and someone else is 80 and we're comfortable, I'd like to know that before we put all our time into interviewing everybody. In fact, I think the way the RFP is set up,
You'll know. You'll have a deliberation and select your top candidate, and then you'll open your envelopes and see where that candidate falls. All you've done is the interview cost blind. You can say, then you can factor in the cost, but you don't have to do it this way. You can open it up and say, I'm taking the low bid. It doesn't matter. You can do it any way you want.
No one said low bid. And in fact, I made it very clear that we're not going to.
What I'm saying is you're making more of this than it needs to be.
Yeah.
You're making more of it than it needs to be. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask that we move on. I think it's clear to the committee, the process going forward, and therefore we still have a lot of the agenda to cover, so I'm going to move forward with it. Thank you, Don. Under the new business, the next discussion is the review of the draft RFP task force report. Does the task force have a spokesperson?
We do.
Yeah. So task force, I think we put together a nice draft RFP. I think there are some very minor edits that would need to go into this. I think there was a few commas to be added, a consultant to be changed to planner, but nothing major. So I'd open the floor. We already talked the schedule, so I think the schedule was a big component we were going to talk about. We already kind of established we think what's provided in this draft is acceptable. Does anybody have any comments?
As opposed to, as for the schedule, I kind of thought there might be a little bit of edits, and thanks to Don's comments. if you look at the schedule that's revised, receive proposals from planners from 12:15 to 1:31. I think that should get just changed to January 20th. The reason for that, Don had suggested that shortlist, planner shortlist, should probably be about like a week. So I would just like to kind of tighten up that timeline. That way we're not receiving proposals the day before our scheduled February meeting. So if the 131 could get changed to January 20th, I think this timeline is pretty nice and tidy.
Do you want to speak to it?
Is that what day of the week is that?
That would be January 20th is.
20th is a
Friday.
Friday.
Thank you.
Sue gave some thought to the timeline. I think she'd like to share her thoughts.
Thanks. In looking at it with the schedule, for one, in my mind, it seems like it's spread out quite a lot. These companies are accustomed to giving responding to RFPs. I'm not sure they need a month to get back to you. And to fit better into the budget schedule and to have a better idea of what kind of budget number you would be presenting, to get it down a little closer. If you had the receiving the proposals from the 8th through the 29th of December, then we would have all of the proposals ready, a list of them for your January 4th meeting. At that point, you could do interviews throughout January and be ready to do a planner selection on your February 1st meeting.
Do you think with the holiday week
That was our
would
concern.
cut it?
That was our task force concern. I mean,
That's
from a
essentially
consultant's
two.
perspective, to have an RFP land on your desk on December 8th and have it due the 29th, and you're looking at what you've already got on your plate, we'll lose,
Well, this is just looking at, all I'm doing is looking at it from the budget.
No,
calendar
that's
point of
good. That's the
view.
way Brad had it originally. Some of us just said.
Once again, it's just her thoughts on it.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
up to
good.
you.
And so that's why we pushed it into January, just to give a week or two.
Just from my perspective, I looked at the numbers and came up with my own schedule, and it mirrored hers within a day or two. So I think they can turn it around in 3 weeks, even though it's the holiday.
I think looking at the proposed schedule for budget development, we have to have our range by January 13th.
And I can fudge that out to the end of the month, but I think that we would look at you sort of like an outside agency in the sense of you're not a town department, you're somebody who's making a request of the town. So that's the ideal time she likes it, but we can certainly push it out a couple more weeks. So that's why I said at the beginning that we can work with your schedule, but we need to develop a number, and that's why I wanted to do what I explained with the clerk.
And if we were going to go more with your schedule, we would probably want to move your January meeting to a little later in the month, so that you could
Have time to review
have
everything.
time to look at it like that.
Well, I think, we provide the schedule, and if there are several planners that say, I need another week, I mean, we've kind of written it in a way where it's at our discretion to provide that anyway. So I don't, that would fit the original timeline. It would put a little more pressure on them up front to get something in for the new year, which would only benefit us, so.
Yeah.
My thoughts are if you don't feel, in your experience, if you don't feel that's putting too much pressure on somebody to get them in, and I know you've already kind of have an idea of who you want to send out to already, right?
I think Chris can speak to that. He's gone through this more recently, but Chris?
Yeah, well, I went through it in Wyndham, and it was, that's why I came up with the numbers I did. I don't think it's unreasonable at all. And I think what you have to do is just be flexible. Like, he said, you can tweak this.
Oh, yeah.
If you find out the planners are saying, no, this is too much, like John, you're saying it's a holiday, maybe we need to give them another week, we can.
So that would need to go out to all, obviously.
Yeah, and while we're on that topic, what happened, and this is off topic from what we're doing right now, but it's likely that these consultants are going to ask questions. So those questions are going to come through the process and then go out to everybody, all the consultants, so everybody has the same information.
Close time.
Yeah, they may ask that question, and then if it's too short, you know, we can't meet it, or whatever, then you can adjust it, and you would let everybody know.
So the event, like, so let's say we only get 2 proposals by the end of the month. We could say, okay, let's extend this deadline out. We would let you know we wish to extend that deadline out, and then that would go out.
To literally repost it at that
You would
point.
literally repost it. Okay. I just want to be clear on how that would work.
You know, there are a couple of ways of handling, it's FAQs, frequently asked questions, but there are a number of ways of handling that. One way is just to have an FAQ meeting inviting everybody who's thinking about posing to it over Zoom, let's say, and just, okay, take the questions there. Another is that people could email in their questions to Sue, and Sue could collect those questions, and I'm guessing just about every question that comes in, Don or Sue would be able to answer, and not necessarily need the committee for that. And so, you know, as FAQs come in during the week, Sue could just send out an email to everybody who's thinking about it on the list, saying, here are FAQs from last week, here are our responses. So those are 2 of the most frequently used ways of doing FAQs, but we don't have it in the timeline. We should have. We didn't put it in, but we should have it.
John?
This is more of a comment. You know, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never had this discussion on any solicitation before. You have complete flexibility. If you have an error or omission, you can correct it. You know, the RFP as a practical matter probably doesn't matter. I like to see them be tight and be factual. We'll get to that in a minute, and that's how they should be. But if you have problems, you can correct it. You know, if you want to adjust things, you can do it. You know, I don't know why this is seeming to be, you know, a difficult thing.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is that there is flexibility in the timeline, and that this is not a contract.
It is not.
So I believe we have to keep that in a perspective. There will be a contract. This is not.
This is just setting some, you know, ground rules for the consultants, or some direction for the consultants, so that you can get the proposals back in an orderly manner. Once you do that, you know, think of it as the Burger King. You're the Burger King. You can do it any way you want to. You can change it. You can, you know, have it loaded or stripped down, any way you like it.
In the, my concern was that we lose some potentially very good planners that are busy and looking at a schedule like that, saying, you know what, we're all set. We don't need to chase that one.
Yep.
But in the spirit of compromise and efficiency of meeting time, I'm not happy to, but I will absolutely yield to the momentum here that we go with a shorter timeline like we've talked about.
Could we
If
meet
it
in
could
the
be
middle?
like the first week in January,
Let's say-
we'd be even happier. But don't need to drag it out. If we need to send out an update, there's mechanisms there, and that'll hopefully be something we don't have to do, because it's an extra bunch of levers we got to pull, and we'd be able to avoid that with another week or 2 in January. But I'll yield to the.
Yeah, I would tell you that my guess on this thing will be it's a very small community of people who do this work. They compete against one another regularly. They have this stuff all in, you know, formatted, you know, replies. They've seen these before.
Yep.
You know, it's all computerized. You know, they can meet a shorter timeline. You can give them a longer one. That's up to you. That doesn't matter to us. I only care about the budget, so I can get your budget for you. That's all I care about. That's her suggestion, his suggestion, fine. You can do it a different way.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know as it'll turn anybody off. I mean, I'm sure if you ask them, give us more time, but then there comes a time when you're giving them too much time. So, you know, I think I saw in one of your RFP that we're the perfect distance from, you know, Portland. Okay, the subcommittee thinks that. Somebody else might think, you know, the Westbrook is. You know, so I just don't get all this, I guess.
I guess I appreciate what the task force is saying, and John's comment in particular, as far as we're going into a little bit of an unknown. That's what we discussed earlier on, as far as we haven't been in this process in over a decade. So we're not really sure of what's out there as far as contract planners are concerned. It may be that there's plenty, and it may be that there are scarcity. We don't know. But once again, I'm going to go back to the fact that the sense I have in this process is that there is flexibility. And therefore, we can kind of go with a shorter time frame up front, meet our budget deadlines, and if in fact, what I'm hearing is, if we do not have a sufficient pool, then we can reissue the RFP and give them more time to attract more. Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
All right. So let's, for the sake of time, let's continue on with the.
Yeah, and I don't recall exactly, but I do remember last time around, we had a woman who's now the Director of Planning and Development for the town of Falmouth. She was a professional planner before she came here and worked in a different capacity. I think she had a big role in putting the RFP together. I could be wrong, probably somebody will correct me, but I don't remember the committee talking about this very much.
No.
She did it. Sent it out. Then you interviewed. You picked somebody. This is simple.
Is that your recollection?
That's my recollection.
All right, thank you.
I don't remember going through anything like this.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on. More to review on the draft. And understand that my goal, and I believe the goal of the task force, was to get a vote on this tonight and get it out the door.
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing so far are just some minor corrections and editing to this. But in my opinion, so far, I haven't heard anything that suggests that there's a deal breaker in voting on this tonight. So,
There is one other thing about the RFP.
yeah.
Three of us went through it. There are a number of factual problems, and so I would ask you if you make a motion to let us correct those errors.
Factual errors,
Small things like the town doesn't own
Lakes
Raymond
instead of
Beach
five.
and Tasseltop, the number of lakes and ponds, the number of rivers, factual things.
I'd ask for unanimous consent that the town have the liberty to edit some minor factual points.
And things like, titles and typographical things. So we each have a list of things, and that we have things in common, and then some of us have things that are just one of us.
So Don, nothing that would be a
It doesn't alter the
major-
RFP.
It doesn't alter
Doesn't
the
alter the
substance, correct?
Or the spirit of the
It's
RFP.
things
De minimis
like-
changes.
Yeah,
De minimis
like
changes.
Nathan's title is Public Works Director.
Okay,
No,
so
public
then
And you're the town
So
clerk.
it's- Yeah, and I'm the town clerk. So
Minor things.
There
Yes.
are just simple things. that-
We have 7 bodies of water, not 5.
Okay, all right. So can I just give unanimous consent on that the town can edit minor factual-ish details and titles and the like?
I think that's great. Yeah, if my vote, the task force certainly has a draft with some edits that are ready to be delivered, as I understand it. That
John said,
maybe that's the,
or do you have another one?
I got some updated edits today, very also de minimis. So
Okay.
de minimis.
So I'll wait and get that from you and then make our
But-
changes from that.
But having said that, it also doesn't matter.
Frank,
If you want to send it the way it is, you can do it. It's your choice.
Frank? Frank?
Fine with me.
Okay.
I think ultimately, you should be able to put the final,
yeah,
like,
everyone's already made the edits. I think
yeah.
the bulk of the work is done. Let's
Yes.
incorporate it and
Yep.
Can you get her out?
get it out.
Anything else from the task force? All right, before I call a vote, I'd just like to show my appreciation and the appreciation of this committee and the work that everyone on that task force has done. And by and large, this is an excellent piece.
It is.
I read through it twice and compared it to what we had to begin with. It's much more readable, and I think you did an excellent job.
You did.
Yes.
Well,
So,
Very good.
we had a great start too from what Sue pulled together.
so I would ask for a motion to approve this draft RFP and to release it, I guess.
We're going to try to turn it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'll try it tomorrow.
And we'll send it out to everybody
All right. So that's, I'm looking for a motion.
through you,
So
through Kayla.
I motion to approve the draft with the edits, the few edits from committee and staff for release as soon as you are able.
Second.
Does that cover it?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Alrighty, moving on. This is Jackie's agenda item. She asked for a discussion on community survey.
Yeah, so I went back and looked at the original email that Kayla had sent out from September 1st, which includes a handful of surveys from local towns that sent out online surveys and the results from those. So I think it might be a good idea for us when we're thinking about starting to reach out to the community to try and get a sense for how many questions we want to have in a survey, and knowing kind of the results now of the election results, trying to focus on what are the questions we want to be asking related to those kind of headline topics. So I don't know if it makes sense for us to revisit some of those original surveys, or for us to start thinking about a few questions that we would want to see on a survey. It may even be a good, I don't know if a task force is warranted at this point in time, but at some point it may be to narrow that down and get that put together. But I think that should be one of our next steps, would be to start reaching out to the community more.
The other comments from committee members?
So I'm wondering just how divided we'll be over length. How much do we, because when I looked at these examples, some of them were quite long surveys and some of them were a lot shorter. So I think it would be to get a sense of what direction we should go in, I think we should kind of talk about length in a way. Like, do we want this to be as detailed, almost as possible? Do we want it to be short and sweet? I think having a general sort of direction that way helps push that forward, because then you know how you're going to concentrate the questions, I guess.
Well, I think if we're trying to determine the length, I think we first have to focus on what it is, what information we need from the survey. So extrapolating what it is we're trying to get at, because that may help direct what the actual length is. And I don't think any of us think it needs to be a 30-minute long survey, and at the same time we're all going to say, oh, the more information we have, the better. But determining what the most important, what the underlying goal is for the survey, I think can help direct what the length actually and the content actually is going to be.
Well, it doesn't have to be just one survey either. It could be sort of a series of surveys that, maybe we start with something very basic and collect some general demographics. Are you a year-round resident? Are you here part-time? Is this your second home you have? And kind of try to get more, well, and the other question is, I guess, do we want more content-based answers where they're actually writing something and giving us information, or is it going to be more multiple choice, pick 1 through 5, which is the most important, or whatever. A lot of these examples had somewhere around the 20 question mark, which seems like a doable number. It doesn't seem like it would turn people off totally. I mean, the one from Belfast had 21 questions. They had a 15% response rate. The town of Appleton had 52 questions. They had a 12% response rate. Not all of these have how many, the rate of response to the questions, but that might be good to know too, I guess.
Well, I took Danielle's suggestion at the end of the meeting in November, and I looked at the Gray website, and I will tell you, both their 2.5-minute infomercial was excellent, and I would certainly suggest anybody that hasn't looked at that to consider it, because I'd love to see that right on our web. It was 2 minutes, 16 seconds. And it answered just those that basic question, what is a comprehensive plan? And it caught my attention. And it was linked to their SurveyMonkey 16 question survey. So I don't disagree with as far as doing this in stages. I think we've already done the very minimal survey at the election. So we've already collected that information. So would it make sense to be looking in terms of step that up to maybe something similar to the gray, and get something on the website, a SurveyMonkey with not real deep questions, but some of that demographic information like Gray had, which is, are you a year-round resident? Do you own property? Do you rent? Those type of things. And it was a mixture of direct questions, yes or no, plus the multiple choice that they had. And then consider, especially when we have our contract planner on board, mining that individual's experience with how they went about generating community surveys or their suggestions, and looking at a more comprehensive survey down the road, understanding that what comes whenever I hear the word comprehensive, it usually translates into more money. Therefore, we're still dealing with what we've got for money now. And therefore, a survey similar to the one done in, Don, when was it, 2004?
Oh, you're talking about the last one?
Yes, the last one.
That was 14, wasn't it?
The one we had the Portland group do was like $10,000, $12,000.
Oh, you're talking about the Pan Atlantic?
The Pan Atlantic.
That was like 2014.
Yeah, that was an extremely in-depth survey that,
That was SurveyMonkey, was it? Was
No,
it online?
no.
Was it
No.
qualitative?
No,
They did it both ways.
That was
They-
Pat Murphy's own format, and we actually, and those rates that you cited are, pretty good actually, but I think we did better than that.
We did.
We did better than that, and that was done for, I want to say like, I think you bid 12.5 or something like that. We got it for 10,000.
Sure, so comprehensive-wise, that's more money than what we can really entertain right now, but certainly build it into a budget. And I think as we had discussed previously, we offered that survey both in paper, we mailed out a paper, and we also had it online.
And there was a lot of follow on, contact, and we did that, and he instructed us on how to do that, and it worked.
Sure. So those are my thoughts, but if you haven't had a chance to look at that gray infomercial, it really is worthwhile.
Good template.
Is their video specific to Gray, or is it more generic?
It was generic. It was the theme was what is a comprehensive plan?
So
And it was-
we might be able to ask them if we can
Boy.
steal it or borrow.
That might be something we could do, rather than have to make one ourselves. What was nice is that the stick figures were interspersed with pictures of the town. So as we just talked about before, to have some overhead shots of the town, the lakes, the mountains, and stuff like that, and click that in along with
I
what
don't know
is.
if you looked at any of our videos on the website that we've had, but we have, a professional videographer who's in the back room now. We have Kayla who did this.
Sure.
She did a great job. So you have who you need to do it
We've got
right here.
somebody who's licensed to run drones. So we've got all of those.
She can take a look at Gray and get with Bill if you're willing to do it.
I also wanted to contact Kevin and see if he had any ideas, can we create art? Does he have any ideas for free software where you can kind of create your own video with animated figures? And I don't know how Gray did that. I don't know if that's something that they did on their own. I think it'd be interesting to ask them a couple questions. How did you do this? Can we have it? Or all kinds of things.
And of course, Bill in the back room, this is what he does. He may be able to look at it and tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and personally, I'm not opposed to stealing as long as it's allowed.
Legal plagiarism.
Municipalities do it all the time.
So is it, this discussion should be carried over to the next meeting with what type of homework or review would you like us to be doing, prepared to discuss at the next meeting?
I don't know if it makes sense to revisit the September 1st email and kind of take a closer look, have each person take a closer look at the surveys that went out and see if there's one that you feel is the closest thing to that we would want to do, or do we want to, I don't know, I guess I'm putting this out to the group. Do we want to come up with our own questions that
I think
are separate from everything
personally,
else?
you start with someone you really liked, and then we alter it if we want.
Yeah.
That's how, I think that's usually, the best. We say, okay, this seems to meet our general goals, length, depth of question, and then we say, okay, are there any changes we wish to make to this to make it more applicable to Raymond, or is it good as is?
Typically, the ones that are really done well are done by professionals. And I recall that years ago, we liked some elements of the Falmouth website that they paid 90 or 100, whatever, they paid a lot of money for it. So we lifted it. And the only person who was unhappy was the department head who had let the contract, and she let us know that. You're Raymond resident too, but the town manager said, fair game. And people do that with us too.
So reviewing other municipality surveys to get an idea of the questions, the length, and how to develop them, the survey questions. Understanding that also we have Kayla's data from the election for forming, and we also have our own survey of our top three. And it probably is going to be that it's going to be a combination of all three of those, along with maybe some more original questions that has been more specific to this town, and come back at the January meeting and share our thoughts on that.
Jackie, you said a September 1 email had a bunch of different.
Yep, it came from Kayla.
We all got that from Kayla.
Yep, September 1st.
So that's the homework.
Yep.
All right, next on the agenda would be the next meeting date, which will be January 4th of 2023.
And given the previous conversation about the RFP,
Yes.
should I move that, or would the committee want the meeting moved to the 11th to give one more week for the planners?
I guess I'd ask first, and you wouldn't be offering it otherwise, but it is available.
It is available, and it would be, it would still be within the budget schedule.
And how does the committee feel about that as far as availability?
So that would be the 11th.
Makes everything sense.
I'm available.
That works for me.
Well,
Brad, Frank?
It's tough for me, but I think moving it back is the best decision. So whether or not I'm there or not, I'll try to make it, but it's a tough time. But I'm very much in favor of moving that meeting back a week.
All right, I ask unanimous consent to move the date to the 11th.
11th.
Very good. Is there any public comment?
Appears to be no public, Mr. Chair.
Very good, thank you. We'll move on to Comprehensive Plan Committee comments.
I think just one thing that I'd like to take a step back just at the moment to clarify, we are well on our way with the RFP and posting that. We've got the survey working in the background. If we're working on those two priorities, are those the two priorities that we want to be focused on right now, or is there anything, because I think our conversations are starting to develop the next few months. I just want to confirm that we're touching on all the things that we want to do as a committee in the next 2 to 3 months.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on other priorities as far as focusing our attention, let's say, over the next couple of months? Brad?
Something we did pretty effectively with the last plan, you probably remember this, Don. We worked with was it the middle school? I'm trying to think what the principal's name was there. But we got the students engaged in what this was all about. They did artwork. We brought them in. I forget how it was voted upon, but we used one of theirs in our logo also. And the whole idea is, they are the future of tomorrow. They're also connected parents who are very much the people who thought Suite 1. And, I talked to John Rand about this earlier in the week, saying, what can we do before our planner comes on board? What is there that we might be doing that's creative and can really get some of this done to utilize that time effectively? Because between now and when the planner comes on, we're kind of a little bit rudderless. And if we go with what you just said, Danella, and try to, okay, let's see if we can do this, this, and this.
Don?
I do recall something like that. It was probably Chris Elkington, who I think now is the superintendent of Oxford Hills, but he was the middle school principal. He was agreeable. The school with the RSU is a little different than our own department, but we did that. And the other thing that it does is that, you know, it gets the kids, you know, thinking about it, excited about it, doing artwork, talking about it. And of course, we used to use this technique a lot. We were allowed to, you know, put something in the packets or whatever they sent home. They don't do that now with the RSU, unfortunately. And so, so we could send messaging through the kids that way, and we did that too about the comp plan. They had some sort of a work exercise, like you said, artwork, something fun. I thought that was good.
Are we able to leverage our relationship with Parks and Rec? Would we be able to use
Yeah, we can
that
definitely do it with
content?
Parks and Rec. He works for us.
Yeah.
We can do that.
In the library.
And the library, and we may still be able to do something with the school. I mean, I think it's pretty important, you know, the future of the town. And, you know, I used to go up and talk to the students about the town in general, but, you know, maybe somebody on the committee, possibly, you know, staff member, you know, talk to the students about it, see if they were willing to do some kind of study unit on it, and or art, or whatever it is you decide, to get the kids, you know, talking about it, and you know, maybe that would get the parents involved too. I don't know. And then all the other thing happens is you get a publicity.
Mm-hmm.
So we would get on the front page of the little papers all around here.
What would the target grade be, or would it be, it wouldn't be K through 12, maybe it would in some form, but there might be a sweet spot of grades where...
What year do they study government? 8th grade? I don't know. Local government?
Yeah, I mean, it may be high school, it may be middle, maybe it's all of them. Maybe you do a different thing for...
Different thing for some bandwidth of grades.
Middle school.
I think we might be slightly restricted on the high school sense since we do not have our own high school. And I understand though we have Raymond kids that would be high schoolers, but I don't know, I just don't, that may work, it may not. But
Well, they're not
I
all
think-
in Wyndham either. There's
right. But there is, I think middle school
Yeah.
would be a very good target because I think they're more engaged at that point where a high schooler might be like, what is this? Why do I have to do it?
5 through 8?
I would agree with her having done all 3 levels. I'd agree with her.
Yeah, I think they might be the most engaging.
So is this something that we want to carry over on as an agenda item as well for more detailed discussion at the next meeting? As far as participation of the RSU Library Parks and Recreation involvement in the comprehensive plan?
And I don't know if the age-friendly group is doing anything at all, but our older citizens as well. And if we have, you know, we have the Lions Club, we have whatever clubs and groups we have, you know, maybe try to engage those people too.
Okay. We'll definitely add that to the agenda for the next meeting.
And I think as a part of that discussion, it's not just the publicity of it, but we have to think of how we're going to leverage the publicity, because the worst thing you can do is hype yourselves up and then not have anything to deliver.
Sure.
And so
Good point.
ensure that there's delivery at the other side of that that is meaningful to the community in terms of where we're going as a committee.
So something, I mean, just mirroring off sort of what we've already done, just to get a sense, and it could be easy, but we could give them a survey. I know that during election time, the middle school does their own vote. They're just not allowed to announce it.
They not announce
During
during the polls ever, you know.
But they do that. They hold their own little elections or surveys. I mean, we could do, I'm just throwing an art contest. You know, what's, you know, most important to you? Draw a picture, show us what it's about. Maybe we have Parks and Rec work with us to sweeten the kitty and give them a pass
Pass or
for the
pass.
season.
We will do that. We'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's directions we could go with this.
Post the winner and the roadrunner.
Yeah, post the winner
And
in the Roadrunner with our logo.
The other thing
And they
besides,
also get a comprehensive plan committee t-shirt.
the other thing you can do, I mean, I don't know how the selectmen would react to it. I mean, but it's I think you can do it. I know some towns, you know, offer some sort of a prize or something, you know, if you participate, which, believe it or not, gets people to participate in doing surveys. So that's another thing you might be able to do. And if you made it something that was, nice enough so that people would do the survey, but meaningful to the town, that's what I would suggest, rather than a TV set or something. So maybe it has to pass. Maybe it's more than that, but you know what I'm saying? Something like that, incentive.
Sure.
Maybe we could canvass a few businesses and see if they'd like to give product or gift
Yes,
away.
yes, that's it.
Free donut at Village Donut.
Or buy it from our local,
We would buy it.
Yeah.
buy it from our local businesses they like better.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
could do that, yes.
Great, all great ideas. All right, moving on. Executive session.
I would make a motion for discussion of comprehensive plan committee duties pursuant to Title I MRSA subsection 405 6A.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Second it.
Motion and second. This is not a debatable motion. All in favor? We are in executive session. Right. Motion to leave executive session.
Second that one.
It's seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Brad, you gonna vote?
I'll abstain.
You'll abstain. All right, so we have 9 for and 1 abstention. All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded.
Seconded.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you.